gonna make Kokedama, which is, I guess, a Japanese word for Japanese moss ball or Japanese string ball. Basically, there's these really neat mini gardens that you can make and put in your house to just have a different type of little garden sitting around. I just think they're the neatest things. I saw them on Google and I decided to make them and show you guys how to make them too. You guys may have seen the video where I harvested my own moss for this out in the world. But if you don't have this available to you or you feel nervous about going and harvesting it yourself, you can always use preserved sheet moss, which I have some of that here as well. You just want to make sure that when you buy it in the pack here, you put some water with it so it kind of livens it back up. You can squeeze it out like this. And I'm going to set this to the side until we're ready to use it. But again, to me, like before we even start, this seems like it's going to be an easier situation just because it's already in big sheets. The stuff I harvested myself kind of breaks apart and it's going to take a lot more handling to get it right. So if you want to kind of an easier route, I think going with the preserved sheet moss is probably going to be the easier thing. So I'm going to set that aside for now, and we're going to mix up our dirt for these Kokedama. And what I did was I pulled that dirt from the job site, not the job site, I don't want to say I got it from a job site, but the area where I got the moss, I took some of the dirt that was right there next to it so I know it's perfect for growing moss. And then you do half of that dirt and then half peat moss. And I'm going to mix those up in this bowl here. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to it so that it kind of gets that nice squishy texture that moss loves so much. Basically, this whole thing needs a lot of water to survive and to make sure that it's gonna grow that moss. You guys know that moss grows in shady conditions and really wet conditions, so we wanna make sure that we're keeping that same trend going when we make its little new home with the soil and the moss. All right, so you mix that up. I probably should have used a larger bowl if I'm being honest. And I've got, it's also a ton. Like this is gonna make either one really big Kokedama garden or a bunch of little small ones. And I think I like to make a bunch of small ones. The plants I'm using today are these little 2-inch planters. You can kind of see next to me over here. I'll pull them in so you guys can see them better. It's kind of like mixing cake batter. You gotta just know the right consistency. It's almost like a little mud pie. Also probably should have pulled up my sleeves, because you know. All right. So it probably could use a little more water. You don't want it to break apart. You want it to kind of hold itself together when you mix it all up. And you know, I had somebody comment the other day that they were so happy to see that I don't use gardening gloves because people tease them for not using garden gloves. Y'all, I hate the way garden gloves feel. I need to be able to feel the project with my hands. I do not like garden gloves. So if that makes you feel better about not using them, you do you. And I don't get manicures, so there's nothing to mess up. All right, so once you've got your good consistency of your ball, you guys can see here how much I have. So depending on what size of ball you want to make, this can make, you know, various amounts, but I'm probably gonna make about this size, maybe a little bigger. And all we're gonna do is make that ball. I'm gonna set it over here to the side and maybe make another one just so that you guys can see the various different ways. Just form it up. And what's fun about this, you can do it with the kids too. I think kids would really enjoy doing this kind of project. It's super easy. You get to work with your hands, and then you kind of get to style it however you want. I'm here at Stokely's Garden Express today, and they have a ton of these little 2-inch plants, and they've got different colors and textures. I love that you've got these various heights too. Look at that one, it's got that maroon color in it. So, you know, if you've got your green moss, look how striking this is gonna be next to each other. It's gonna be a really pretty little arrangement. So, you can get a bunch of these little 2-inch ones. This one's so pretty. Look at that one with the red on the bottom. So I'm gonna do this one first. So what you wanna do is take your plant out of the pot, just like you would anytime you're planting anything, and kind of work as much soil off of the plant roots as you can. Just kind of rotate it around. Pull the soil away. And you guys can see how moist this soil is and how much this plant is thriving. You want to make sure that you're choosing plants that also enjoy the same conditions as the moss around it. This is like any other container planting that you would do, where you want to make sure that whatever you put into the container agree with all the entire, like that's its home. So you want to make sure that the plants you're putting together like the same environment, or else they're not going to survive together in one spot. All right, so once you've kind of gotten this flattened out and the roots kind of more exposed and as much soil off of it as you can, then you go back to your little mud ball that you made, split it open a little bit, right in the middle if you can. This one's a little off center, but it'll be all right. And then you put your plant right down in the center like that, and then reform that ball back around it again. So now you've given it its little planter home that it's gonna live in. Now, if you wanna get real fancy with it, you can put in some slow release fertilizer. I'm not gonna get too much into that because I'm a little nervous that I might burn the plant or mess it up somehow. So that's it. Then we're gonna go and we're gonna put that sheet moss on. And what you can do is you can lay it flat. Let me move these out of the way so you guys can see. But you can lay that sheet moss flat down on a flat surface. I'm using this plate here. And then use that to kind of wrap your moss up and around. This is a nice big piece. Maybe I'll use this one. So you guys can see how it's wrapping up and around here. And then I'll use this piece to maybe come around here. So you can see it's getting bigger and bigger. Even though we started off with kind of a small ball of dirt, it's getting bigger and bigger. Let's put one more piece in. All right, so once you get all the moss where you want it all over here, then how do you tie it together, right? You use string, which is also why it's referred to as a Japanese string ball. So we're gonna do that. Hopefully it'll stay tight enough while I can get my string prepared here. And a lot of people will use jute. You'll see online, if you Google this term, you'll see people using a thick, natural colored jute. I don't really love the way that looks. I would rather this appear to be kind of on its own. And so I pulled literally some black upholstery thread that I had at the house, and I'm gonna use that because I feel like it's strong enough to hold this thing together. And basically you just start, I'm gonna wrap it around once, tie it to itself, and then start wrapping it around and around, just so that moss is holding onto each other until it can get established. All right, so I've got it wrapped on once and tied to itself, and now I'm just gonna start wrapping it around and around. And again, if you like that look where you can see the exposed jute, that's fine too. You can use fishing wire, that's clear, completely clear. But you guys, this is so easy. This is literally the first one I've ever made in my life. Making it with you right now. So another thing that you'll see if you Google this is you'll see them hanging. And that's as simple as just tying off pieces of string and pulling it up. But that's not how I'm gonna do it today. I'm gonna trim this off and tie it back onto itself. If I can find a string. Now remember that these are super wet. They have a ton of water in them. And so you can't just sit them down on a table somewhere because it'll ruin your table. But the good thing about that is it gives you the ability to style this Kokedama in a way that will fit your home. So right now for this one, we've got red and we've got green. All right, we're tied off. So we've got this really rusty color and this green, which is really beautiful. And what I'm gonna do is, okay, if you've been following me on social media for long enough, you guys know that I love to thrift shop, and you know that I cannot pass up handmade pottery. No matter where I go, I'm always picking up handmade pottery. And I just think that these are the perfect way to display a Kokedama, don't you? Look at that. You can do that, Or you can group them together. You can make 3 of them and group them together. Like if we had 3 of them, we could put them on a tray here. Imagine that. I'm moving closer and closer to the camera. Sorry, Nate. So imagine if you had, or 2, or like gather them together. And if you had 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, how beautiful that would be. So you guys go make these. I'd be really happy to see you guys make a bunch of kokedama. But for now, this is how I'm gonna display mine in my house. And it's gonna make me so happy. All right, you guys go make kokedama. Send me a picture of yours. I can't wait to see them.